So Moana 2 has hit theaters, but should you see it? Because this was originally supposed to be a Disney Plus streaming show. So does it just feel like a streaming movie? Well, kind of, but not really. I would say definitely go see Moana 2 if you're a fan of the original, if you're a fan of Disney, if you're a fan of Disney princesses, because this film is actually really good. And the thing that surprised me was that usually what carries these things is the songs. But what carries Moana 2 is the story. The story is so rich, the characters are very well developed, surprisingly so. And I think that is because it was supposed to be a streaming show. Streaming shows tend to have a little bit more room to breathe, to develop characters, even if I would imagine that these would have been very short episodes, which is why they can make a full movie out of it, because the characters, the journey that the characters go on is so impressive and feel very complex for a film, specifically for a sequel, that usually Disney sequels haven't been, Disney animated sequels I should say, haven't been really well done. I think Frozen 2, Cars 2, like Incredibles 2, like they were good, but they weren't very complex to some extent. Um, but I would say Moana 2 is one of the better sequels that they've put out there. And I think that it just goes to show you how great of a character Moana is. Moana is definitely one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Disney princess, even though she's not technically a princess, but who is at this point? Moana, she is just exudes so much of who I would want to be. And I think that in this film, she helps us, the audience, she gives us a really good message about what it means to find yourself and how you sometimes have to lose yourself, how there's always another way to get to your end goal. Like there's not just one set way and you have to look at all the possibilities. And so the importance of connecting with other people, because especially in today's society where I feel like we're so fragmented, connection is so important. And I think that is really special for a film to illuminate that, and especially a kids film, because these kids who are growing up on these films are going to be the future generation. And so hopefully this, they can retain some of this message, some of this magic within them a little bit longer. And I think that would make the world a little bit better. But yeah, it's a great message to have in a film in general, especially a kids film. I'm also a really big fan of all of the new characters that they introduced in this. Normally in sequels, they just try to introduce a bunch of new characters, none of them really stick. But I think, again, going back to the nature of this supposed to be a streaming show at first, so they all have time to kind of develop their individual arcs and journey, but they also feed into Moana's journey. Like by bringing them into their own, Moana is coming into her own as well. I would say my favorites are the villain, Matangi. She has a great song in this, like one of the actually good songs of this film, and she does a great job with that. And I'm really excited for her to return, because it sets up that she will return, which is really exciting. But also, I forget his name. I think it's Moni, who plays essentially like this like super big Maui fanboy, and he kind of looks like him, but just like, you know, not a demigod, not quite there yet. But he is really funny. He's really sensitive, and he's going to be on a lot of Hear Me Out cakes. I will just say that right now. And I'm wondering if this is potentially a romantic relationship for Moana in the future, or if this is potential representation for a certain demographic. I think it could work either way, but we'll see what Disney decides to do with this character and with all of these supporting characters, see how many of them actually will come back for Moana 3 if we ever get that. So now the only thing that I think really doesn't work for this film is the songs, but unfortunately that is a big part of what made the original Moana so popular, is the fact that kids and adults alike really like the music that Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I think not having him return really hurt this film. And I get it, because it was originally supposed to be a streaming show, so he probably was too expensive to get for a streaming show. um, but they ended up getting Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear, who are most well known for their Bridgerton musical that they made starting on TikTok a couple of years ago. I think it was like right during the pandemic, early on. And so they have two songs that I think are actually really good. Beyond, which is actually like genuinely probably one of the best songs I've heard in a musical in a while. And then they have the villain song of Getting Lost, which also is really solid. I think really the performance is what makes that song, not so much the song itself. All the other songs are pretty forgettable. I couldn't tell you what they were. They felt like they were just trying to they didn't feel inspired by Lin-Manuel Miranda. They felt like they were trying to copy his voice and his style. That feels more like a mandate from corporate, right? But I think that it was a little bit too early to have them um, compose the songs for a big Disney musical so early. I think they haven't found their voice yet, so they were very easily swayed to mimic another person's voice. And I think that that comes through in all of the other songs. Not a bad, not they're not necessarily bad songs. They're just not memorable, and that really is the songs are really a driving force of these movies, which is why I think that the Rotten Tomato score is so low. Which is why I think that Moana 2 isn't getting as much praise as it should, and you can feel the momentum slow down. And then with Wicked having just been released, people have a clear alternative to seeing Moana 2, which I think is potentially could hurt it in the box office. But we'll see if the love for the original Moana can make them still driving horse to see this film. I would highly recommend seeing Moana 2. If anything alone, this ends in such a good position that I'm super excited for Moana 3, and my brain doesn't comprehend why in the world they would do a Moana live action film that's just a retelling of the first Moana when they can make Moana 3, which seems like it would be such an interesting exploration. And the mythology has grown, and Moana, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but if it's not too late, Disney, please scrap the live action and just make Moana 3, or make Moana 3 live action. Done. But yeah, those were my thoughts on Moana 2, my spoiler free thoughts on Moana 2. I'd love to know what you thought about the ending. For me personally, it made up for any faults that the movie may have had. I think the ending completely just sealed the deal that this movie and this character is the real deal. But we'd love to hear your thoughts down below.